Congratulations on being elected as the president or vice president of your 4-H club. This is the training to help you better understand what your job will be as the president or vice president. We would like to congratulate you as you prepare to take on your new position as the club president or vice president. You truly have an important job. Your fellow 4-Hers have shown their support in your leadership by electing you as the club officer. The successful teamwork of the group depends on you. You are truly the leader of this club. You should learn now how to conduct a business meeting, how to cooperate with your other 4-Hers, and how to make your club or council work together. As the club president, you will plan the business portion of the meeting with your leaders before the meetings are held. It would be very beneficial for you to set up a meeting each month with your club leaders prior to your club meeting so that you can help plan and know what you need to discuss with your 4-H members. You should check on meeting arrangements, seating, lights, and the temperature of the meeting place prior to your members arriving. You should also prepare a meeting agenda in advance. You should know parliamentary procedure so that you can conduct an orderly meeting and keep on task throughout your meeting time. You should also make sure that you start and stop the meeting on time. If your meeting starts at 6:30, make sure to start promptly at 6:30. If you plan for your meeting to be 1 hour, you should adjourn your meeting no later than 7:30. As the 4-H club president, you have many duties that you are responsible for. First and foremost, you will call the meetings to order, direct the business meeting, and preside over the entire meeting to make sure that it stays on track. If your secretary is not in attendance, it is your job to appoint a temporary secretary to take the minutes of the meeting. It is imperative that you keep minutes of each and every club meeting. In addition, you will keep order over your club meeting. Make sure to be courteous, but also be firm. For example, if you have 4-H members talking about an outside event or activity, or just having an outside conversation during your club meeting, it is important that you ask them to please be thoughtful of others and to wait to have this conversation until after your meeting. Again, be courteous to the members, but be firm. As the president, you will provide opportunities for all members to be heard. Make sure that you are encouraging everyone to participate in the meeting. It is your job to create a sense of belonging. Make 4-H members feel that they belong in this meeting, that they play a role or a part. It's important that you decide points of order fairly. And you will also work with your elected officer team to plan, carry out, and evaluate successful meetings. Additional duties as the president include guiding the meeting in a courteous and tactful way. Avoid talking too much. Remember, this is a meeting for all. You are not to be the only one talking during the meeting. You want to keep the program moving. The president is only the pilot and should avoid giving opinions or on motions under discussion. You should cast a deciding vote in the case of a tie vote. You may vote when the vote is by ballot. As the club president, you will appoint committees when directed by the club or council and define the responsibilities of the committees. This committee will work with the leaders if necessary. For instance, if your club has decided that you would like to purchase new t-shirts, you could appoint a t-shirt committee that would help to find a t-shirt provider as well as a t-shirt design. You would give them the duties that they are responsible for and appoint the committee. Finally, you should work close with your club leader to plan, practice, and evaluate your work. Planning is essential in having a well-run meeting. As the club president, you will delegate the responsibilities so that every 4-H'er has some type of responsibility in the group throughout the year. They don't have to have a responsibility every month, but make sure that you give each member a responsibility at least one time per year. It is your job to coordinate with the vice president to ensure that there is a program planned for each meeting. This should be some type of educational program, whether it be the parts of an animal, some kind of hands-on activity, or a guest speaker. You should arrange to have another person, usually the vice president, preside over the meeting if you cannot attend. You should work with other officers to plan programs and carry out events. And you should also keep in touch with your club leaders and your county extension agent to find out about upcoming activities, rules, and other important information. Vice Presidents, it's time to learn about your duties. You are there to help the president and to take over in times that they are unable to be at the meetings. It's important, just as the president, that you learn parliamentary procedures so that you can conduct an orderly meeting. You will preside at meetings in the absence of the president. So, in order to do that, you must know the duties of the president. You should serve as a chairman of the program committee. You can help prepare a calendar of events, be responsible for following through with each monthly program for the year, and notify members who are on the program committee. It is your job to arrange each program to make a well-balanced one. Announce the program at each meeting. So if you are working to have a well-balanced program, an example would be to have a feed representative come to a meeting and talk about what makes up animal feed. Once that person has done their speech, you can provide your 4-H members with feed tags and help them learn how to appropriately read a feed tag. That is just one example of how to create a well-balanced program. The club president will work closely with presidents, leaders, and other club officers on all club activities. You should consult the president on plans or special work needed. As the program chairman, you will sit near the front of the room or at the table with the president and secretary. It is very important to inform the president if you will be absent from a meeting or event. As your 4-H club president or vice president, you need to have an understanding of how to create a 4-H club meeting agenda. You should have an agenda created before each and every meeting. At each meeting, all attendees should receive a copy of the agenda prior to the meeting starting. Most often, agendas are provided as your members walk into the meeting room. On the right side of your screen, you will see a sample business meeting agenda guide. This guide will help you to formulate your first club agenda. At the very top of your page, you should include your club name, the date of the meeting, as well as the time at which the meeting should be called to order. Below that, you should have a line with the American and 4-H pledge, as well as the name of the person who should be leading those pledges for this meeting. Remember to try to choose a different member for each club meeting to run the pledge portion of the meeting. Once the pledges are complete, you will call roll, or actually have your secretary call the roll, or pass around a sign-in sheet to take attendance. Once attendance has been taken or roll has been called, you should introduce any guests attending your meeting. Once guests have been introduced, the secretary should read the meeting minutes from the meeting prior. Once meeting minutes have been read, the treasurer will then give the treasurer's report. Any correspondence should then be reported. Once other correspondence has been reported, any other officers having reports should then report. The 4-H council report should then be given, if there is one. If your club has any committees, that's now time for your committees to report what they have been working on. Finally, any project reports should then be given. Moving on to old business, you should write down anything that you had talked about at the previous meeting that needs to be re-reported. New business will include any business that is new, anything that your club will need to decide on at this meeting. Next would be any announcements, so any type of events coming up or deadlines that your members may need to know. Finally is the adjournment of your business portion of your meeting. Once you have adjourned your business portion of the meeting, you can then start on your program. You should assign someone to introduce your program and the person presenting. Finally is the recreation portion of your meeting. Remember that a good meeting should include recreation, whether this is a time for you to play an icebreaker or some type of simple game or activity, or just a time for your members to get to know one another and enjoy refreshments. As stated previously, as the club president or vice president, it is important for you to understand how to run a 4-H business meeting using parliamentary procedure. Parliamentary procedure is a system of conducting meetings based on Robert's Rules of Order. This allows a group to hold an orderly meeting and accomplish their goals in an effective, fair, and efficient manner. So why use parliamentary procedure? Well, it keeps your meetings running orderly. It allows a group to accomplish more in less amount of time. It also helps a group meet its goals. Finally, parliamentary procedure provides a democratic process at meetings. In essence, everybody has a vote. One or two people or a small group does not determine what your club will be doing. Rather, the entire group has the opportunity to help decide. Parliamentary procedure allows all club members to have a say and express their opinions. It also helps you learn how to conduct and participate in meetings and allows 4-H youth to experience and practice life skills that will help them in school and as adults. When running a 4-H meeting, a 4-H club needs club officers that have been elected by the club members. Those officers include a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. In addition, you can have other officers including reporter, historian, and sergeant-at-arms. Some clubs also like to elect a club wisdom who will give the thought of the day. When you're getting started running a 4-H meeting, the president, with the assistance of the 4-H club leader, will prepare an agenda before the meeting. Again, just to review, the agenda usually consists of the following: a call to order, reading and approval of minutes, treasurer's report, committee reports, unfinished business, new business, and the adjournment of the business meeting. When speaking of orders of business, it is essential to have procedures in place during any business meeting. Parliamentary procedure allows all attendees the opportunity to speak and be heard with order and devoid of intimidation. The person overseeing the meeting, usually the president, calls on the members to speak and make sure that order is being followed. The club leader may assist if assistance is needed. 4 basics of parliamentary procedure to remember include: only one person can talk at a time. We want to do all that we can to avoid members and officers talking over one another. The president should call on one person at a time. Each motion is entitled to careful consideration and discussion. If a motion is made to purchase t-shirts, the club should discuss what type of t-shirts they would want to purchase, how much they were willing to spend, and any other important elements of purchasing t-shirts that they might need to consider. In club meetings, every member has equal rights. It's important that every club member has equal chance and opportunity. Finally, the will of the majority is carried out. So, if something is voted upon and it is voted 8-3, 8 people voted for the motion and 3 voted against, then the motion carries and moves on in the 4 aspect because 8 people voted for it. So the majority is what makes the decision. Let's go over some important definitions or common terms used with parliamentary procedure. Again, discussing an agenda. An agenda is a list of items to be discussed at a formal meeting. It is made always in advance, and usually by the president with the help of the vice president and the club leaders. It can be shared and should be shared with the meeting group before the meeting. AYE says I. I is said to express approval of a motion. When said during a vote, it means that the person agrees. It means yes. So if you are voting on purchasing club t-shirts, the club president would ask all those in favor of purchasing club t-shirts, please say aye. Anyone who says aye says yes, they agree to purchase club t-shirts. The next common term is floor, and we do not mean the floor that you are walking on. Floor is when someone is given permission by the president to speak during the meeting. That person has the floor, or has everyone's attention. Next is majority. Majority is at least one member over half of the members. Example, the majority of a group of 10 is at least 5 plus 1. 5 is half of 10, making the majority 5 plus 1, or 6. Next is a motion. A motion is an idea that someone attending a meeting wants the whole group to contemplate or act on. So someone is able to make a motion. For instance, I make a motion to purchase club t-shirts. They would like, you as a member would like to see everybody vote on whether or not they would like to purchase t-shirts or not. We spoke about I before, I meaning yes. When we're voting nay, nay is said during a vote if the member disagrees or wants to say no. So you would say aye for yes or nay for no. Next, parliamentary procedure is a set of guidelines that defines how to properly conduct a business meeting. The presiding officer, usually the president, is the person in charge of conducting a meeting. And finally, the word second. Second, the presiding officer will ask for a second when a motion is made. Asking for a second basically means asking if anyone else agrees that the motion should be made, should be considered. So make sure that when you are asked for a second, you must have one to move on with the vote, discussion, and vote. A motion is an idea that someone attending a meeting wants the whole group to contemplate and act on. There are steps that need to be taken to either approve or reject a motion. The steps to making a simple motion are as followed. Number 1, a member must make a motion. Any member can make a motion but must wait for their turn to speak. The presiding officer will make sure that the member wanting to speak has their time. Number 2, another member seconds that motion. Any member can second the motion. And number 3, the presiding officer states the motion and puts the motion up for discussion. Here's an example. A member states, I move that our club has a bake sale. Another member states, I second the motion. The presiding officer states, it has been moved and seconded that our club has a bake sale. Is there any discussion? That's the perfect time if you have a question or a statement about having a bake sale, this is the time for you to bring it up. Once the discussion has been had, it's now time to vote on the motion. So after a motion has been introduced and discussion has occurred, the presiding officer, usually the president of the club, will request that a vote takes place. All members present should vote to ensure that their voice is heard. A vote can be taken by a raise of hands, a voiced aye or nay, or by a written secret ballot. Once the voting is complete, the presiding officer will announce the outcome. For example, the motion carries. Our club is in favor of having a bake sale. Remember that for a motion to carry, you must have a majority, which is half plus 1. Next, we'll talk about the sample order of a 4-H business meeting. We already did this earlier, but this is just a recap, so make sure that you remember the order of business meetings. First, the meeting is called to order. You have that cool hammer, it's called a gavel. So when you call a meeting to order, you tap the gavel and call the meeting to order. Next, you do the pledges. All members should recite the Pledge of Allegiance followed by the 4-H pledge. Remember to make sure that your members know the motions of the pledges. Next, you will introduce any new members and guests. The secretary then takes and records attendance. This is called roll call. Next is the reading of the minutes. The secretary reads the minutes of a previous meeting. The president asks if there needs to be any additions or corrections to the minutes. If there are, they are voted on. A motion is then made to accept the minutes. The motion needs to be seconded, and the group will vote to accept the minutes. Next is the treasurer's report. The president will ask the treasurer to give a report. The treasurer will give the report. The president will ask if there are any questions. The treasurer will respond to questions, if any. The president asks for a motion and a second to accept the report. The group will vote to accept the report. Next are any committee reports. These committee reports will be given by the chair of each committee. The reports will be discussed. A motion and a second, as well as a vote to accept, is needed for each report. Next, old business is covered. Items of old business will be brought to the floor by the president. Each item will be discussed. A motion, a second, and a vote by the group will be needed for each item discussed. Next is new business. All new items on the agenda need to be individually discussed, motioned, and seconded, as well as voted on. Next are announcements. Announcements are made by the designated person. This could be the president, the vice president, or even your club leader. Finally, you will adjourn your meeting. After all business is finished, the president will ask, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? A motion, second, and vote is needed to adjourn. At the conclusion, the president will say, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for taking the time to complete the 4-H Club Officer Training for Presidents and Vice Presidents. Remember to contact your club leader or 4-H agent with any questions that you may have. It is super important for you to please take the evaluation to gain credit for taking the Club Officer Training. Show us what you've learned. We hope that you've learned something during this club training. Thank you again, and contact us with any questions.